So, 2017 has really been an awesome year for superhero movies. We got some really great ones, some that I loved more than others, but on the whole, it's given us movies that are among the best of the genre in just 1 year. And we got 2 more coming out before the year ends, Thor Ragnarok and of course Justice League, which I want to be excited for. I'm holding out hope. After Wonder Woman was good, or great, I'm holding out hope for Justice League. And that movie features 2 of the most iconic superheroes ever, Superman and Batman. I figured now's the perfect time to go back and review their older movies. Without further ado, we're just gonna kick things off with what I consider to be the first modern superhero movie ever, Superman. And I wear this whole thing just to do this. Alright, just gonna toss this aside. There we go, it's on the floor, I'll pick it up later. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking already, but Alexander, you already reviewed this movie on this channel, not the old one, this one. I did, but I figured since time has gone on, I've kind of gotten better on camera, I figured why not do a proper review? One where I'm not rambling, one where I actually have to go out to see the movie again and then review it. We're going to kick things off with the 1978 Richard Donner classic, Superman the movie, sometimes just Superman. The movie here is pretty much the origin of Superman. Lil Kal-El is sent to Earth after his planet of Krypton is blown up. He's adopted by the Kents, raised to be Clark Kent, and eventually takes on the identity of Superman. There's not much to that plot because everyone knows the origin of Superman. There is another plot that kicks in involving Gene Hackman, who plays Lex Luthor, as he has a plan to try to make real estate by splitting California from the rest of the country thanks to the San Andreas Fault. The tagline for this movie is, "You'll believe a man can fly." And what Richard Donner planned to do with this movie was make everyone believe in the character of Superman. That was his main goal, to get Superman right for his first feature film. And goddamn if it doesn't succeed. Not only does it succeed, but without this movie, there'd probably be no other superhero movies out there. I say that this movie is the first modern superhero movie. And sure, like when people think of the big surge of modern superhero movies, X-Men and Blade, and even Spider-Man are usually the ones that come to mind because they were the ones that kind of kicked off the genre after Batman and Robin kind of killed it. But without this movie, without the original Richard Donner Superman, those movies would never exist. Every movie in the genre, whether they know it or not, owe a lot to Superman the movie. There'd be no Spider-Man, there'd be no X-Men, there'd be no Blade, there'd be no Batman Begins, there'd be no Wonder Woman, there'd be no Captain America, Avengers, Iron Man, the list goes on. And like I said, the ultimate thing that really makes this movie work is the character of Superman, and particularly the actor they got to play him, Christopher Reeve. You can't get any more perfect in terms of casting Superman than this. What Christopher Reeve does is he takes a character who is actually one of the least interesting comic book characters ever and makes him likable. He gives Superman a personality. He's kind, he's heroic, he's inspirational, he can be funny at points, and he's just a great symbol. When people reviewed Wonder Woman when it first came out, everyone kept comparing Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman to Christopher Reeve as Superman. And after rewatching this first movie, I get what these people are saying because both the characters are very kind and their main MO is to just save people and do the right thing. As Superman says in this movie, he's on Earth for truth, justice, and the American way, even though he ends up being a savior for the whole planet, not just America. And he also does a great job at making Superman and Clark Kent feel like 2 different people. When he's Clark Kent, he's ultra nerdy, he's Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, he has these gigantic glasses from the 70s that try to hide his identity, which I know everyone's made fun of it, but also it's a comic book thing, so at what point do I criticize the movie for doing that when it's been a staple in the books since day one? But he does a great job of making Clark Kent a likable little dork. And what I also love is that right before Superman has to make his public appearance, he goes around secretly saving people as Clark Kent. There's a scene when he and Lois Lane are mugged in an alley, and the end result is the thug shooting Clark Kent, which he manages to make out alive just because he caught the bullet. And a similar scene like that would happen in Wonder Woman when Gal Gadot saves Chris Pine from a bullet after they're cornered in an alley. So I love all all the undercover stuff, and I love his introduction as Superman. It's during the scene when Lois Lane is in the helicopter and it's off the side of a building. Clark Kent sees the helicopter falling, so his first instinct is to go to a phone booth, because one of the most iconic things about Superman is the phone booth that he goes in to change outfits. But what I love is that the very first shot of the phone booth pretty much is a close-up, and then we zoom out to see that it's not one of those tall ones that you're so familiar with. So he has to find a turnstile, just spin around a couple times until he's Superman, which is followed by one of my favorite one-off lines in any of these movies. "Say, Jim, that's a bad outfit." Woo! And then he just goes up the building, saves Lois and the helicopter. It gives you that important first impression of Superman that will continue to go throughout the whole movie, so you get an instant idea of who this guy is like. And that's an important rule that other movies in the genre have to follow. When you first introduce the superhero, you have to make their appearance iconic and impactful. Tim Burton's Batman and Batman Begins have done it tremendously well with Batman. Iron Man did it well, Captain America did it well, the Avengers did an amazing job with that 360 shot of all the characters together. And then the No Man's Land scene in Wonder Woman was amazing as well, which, yes, she made her first public appearance in Batman vs. Superman, but her first public appearance as Wonder Woman in Wonder Woman is more impactful and emotionally powerful. Getting back to Superman, his motivation for going out to save people is also really important as well, because when he's young Clark Kent, he's using his powers to kind of show off to girls, try to one-up bullies, and Jonathan Kent basically gives him a lecture on how you don't need to use your powers for this. You were put on this earth for a reason. I don't know what it is, but you were put here for a reason. And it's a brief but effective speech. And then all of a sudden, Jonathan Kent dies of a heart attack. And then at the funeral, Clark tells Martha Kent that with all those things he can do and all those powers, he couldn't even save his adoptive father from dying. So that motivates him to go on a journey to discover who he actually is. He comes across the Fortress of Solitude, finds out who his real father is, Jor-El, played by Marlon Brando. I'll get back to him a little later. And then he eventually takes on the identity of Superman to go out, do the right thing, and save people. It's a better motivation for Superman to do what he's doing, and it makes him more of a likable character, unlike in Man of Steel, where he's almost doing all these things out of a burden. He feels like he has to do all this stuff, even though he doesn't really want to. And I gotta touch upon the Jonathan Kent death scenes in both movies. I'm sorry, but the death scene here is more effective because it's a heart attack. And this is a point when Clark Kent is still trying to discover his powers. So when he dies, he feels guilty because he has all these amazing powers and he couldn't stop death. That's a great scene right there and a great motivation to try to go out and save people. In Man of Steel, with that tornado scene, that's a situation where Clark Kent could have easily saved Jonathan Kent, and there are a million other ways he could have done it without getting spotted. This movie where Clark Kent says, all those powers and I couldn't even save him, in Man of Steel, it's very much all those powers and he wouldn't let me save him. That's the last time I'll rag about Man of Steel in this review, but every time I try to watch that movie and give it another chance, that tornado scene comes up and I'm like, no, I can't do it anymore. This sucks. But let's get back into this movie. Screw Man of Steel. Let's get back to Richard Donner's Superman. One other aspect that I would kill myself if I didn't mention, and one of the things that makes Superman so iconic in this movie, is John Williams' score. Coming fresh off of his Oscar win of Star Wars, John Williams came in to do the score for Superman after Richard Donner's original choice, Jerry Goldsmith, dropped out. Jerry Goldsmith did work with Richard Donner on The Omen, and he was supposed to come in and do the score for this movie, but due to scheduling conflicts, he backed out. So John Williams came in, and I'm really curious to see what would have happened if Jerry Goldsmith had stayed. Because without this John Williams theme, I don't think Superman would be as defined and memorable without it. Because when you hear the first few notes, do 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 do, you instantly know what song is playing, and you instantly know which superhero comes to mind when you hear that theme. It's an amazing theme. It even, like a lot of his other scores, got nominated for an Academy Award, but didn't win, which is a shame. Now, as much as I'm praising the movie, and a lot of it does have to deal with Christopher Reeve as Superman, and just how well they get the character right. There are some issues that I had. I'm not going to criticize the outdated looking special effects because that was the 70s. This was the first movie of its kind, so they were still kind of perfecting how to make Superman fly and how to make it super convincing. But given the time and the fact that you could barely see the strings, they did an amazing job. But in terms of the stuff that I'm not a big fan of, Gene Hackman he's good as Lex Luthor, definitely better than Jesse Eisenberg. And his plan is very basic, but he's not the Lex Luthor that I usually imagine. When I think of Lex Luthor, I think of him holding a major corporation, doing all these evil things. The Nostalgia Critic summed up my idea of Lex Luthor perfectly. He's pretty much like Donald Trump if he knew he was evil and he wasn't a fucking idiot. In this movie, Lex Luthor is very much a cliched supervillain. He apparently does have money and he's really smart, but he has a secret lair, he has a bumbling sidekick with Otis. He goes around touting himself to be the greatest criminal mind of our time. It makes the movie a little underwhelming in terms of the hero-villain relationship. Both Lex Luthor and Superman don't get enough screen time together, so you don't really get that great brains versus bronze confrontation. Superman might be the strongest guy, but Lex Luthor is the smartest. Now let's talk about Marlon Brando as Jor-El, who gets top billing throughout this whole movie because he's Marlon Brando and he won an Oscar for The Godfather. He's Superman's biological father, Jor-El, and he has charisma, he has screen presence, except he can't pronounce Krypton correctly. Throughout the whole movie, he keeps pronouncing it as Krypton, and I have no idea what the story's behind it. I don't know whether he was told that he was pronouncing it incorrectly, but didn't listen. Nobody told him he was pronouncing it incorrectly, which doesn't make sense because we hear Christopher Reeve pronouncing Krypton correctly. Or the third option, people may have been too scared to tell him that he was pronouncing it incorrectly, which, again, doesn't make sense because in Superman 2, Superman's biological mother pronounces it Krypton as well. So I have no idea what the actual story behind this is, but it's distracting at points. Again, he's not in the movie for very long, but every time he says Krypton, I just want to shout out, Krypton! Now, the last thing I should probably mention is the ending of the movie. That Deus Ex Machina ending that, for some people, ruins the whole movie. And I won't go so far to say that it ruins it. Basically, Superman spins the Earth backwards to reverse time and save Lois Lane and all of California. So the story is that two bombs are going off. One of them hits the San Andreas Fault in California to create a massive earthquake. Lois Lane happens to be there on a story, and then once all hell breaks loose, Superman goes around the entire state saving people, blocking up a dam that's about to flood a village, saves a train from getting derailed off the tracks. He saves Jimmy Olsen. He's saving as many people as he can. He pretty much saves everyone except Lois Lane. Lois Lane's car gets caught in the earthquake and she actually dies. So Superman pulls her out, he moans, he cries, he's angry, and then he goes into the sky and attempts to spin the Earth backwards to reverse time and save Lois Lane and just kind of make things right. And I actually have somewhat of a defense for this scene. It doesn't seem completely out of character for Superman to do this because when he goes up into the sky just before he enters space, he hears Jor-El's reminder of it is forbidden for you to interfere. He hears Jonathan Kent's reminder that he was put on Earth for a reason. And then he hears his younger self as he says, all those amazing things I could do, all those powers, and I couldn't even save him. So he listens to all those voices. He realizes that he has all these powers. Now's his chance to try to save someone from death. He spins the Earth backwards, reverses time, the whole day is saved. I get the motivation for wanting to do that, because he couldn't save Jonathan Kent from a heart attack. He's going to try to save Lois from her death. That being said, though, you are going to have a lot of questions when you watch this scene, and you're going to point to a lot of things in this scene and go, that makes no fucking sense. I mean, there's only so much you can say with a indestructible man who flies. But why would the Earth spinning backwards make you travel back in time? Wouldn't that just throw everything off? Everyone would lose balance. Wouldn't the missiles still be on the loose if he reversed time? Wouldn't there be two Supermen? It just doesn't make sense when you really look at that scene and you ask all these questions afterwards. But unlike some other people, I don't let this scene ruin the rest of the movie for me, because this is one of the most important and iconic superhero movies out there. And it nails the character of Superman. Christopher Reeve is amazing in the role. It's fun, it's lighthearted, it's often dramatic. You like the characters, the music's phenomenal. It's just overall inspirational, so it's definitely worth seeing in your lifetime. It's not a perfect movie, and I can't quite say get off your ass and go see it right now because of some of the problems I had, but it is one of the most important superhero movies out there, and without it, we probably wouldn't have the superhero genre in film. And that's my review for Richard Donner's Superman. Next week, I'll be taking a look at Superman 2, both the theatrical cut and the Richard Donner cut. The latter I've never seen before, so I'm looking forward to watching that for the first time. And until next week, I hope you enjoyed this review. Leave a comment down below and tell me what your thoughts are on the movie, if and when you've seen it. And as always, this is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.